stay comfortable. But
You like going down the microphone?
there's a table close, so you could just. Sorry about that. It should have been.
You want a microphone?
What's that?
Shimon, you want a microphone?
Right. Yeah, I'm assuming. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Chaim bracha.
Not a big microphone.
No, I'm good. I'm good. So, first I want to thank everybody who came. Thank you so much for coming and joining me this evening to break the fast of
My birthday party.
We call it farbrengen.
yeah, no, thank you for joining me in this farbrengen. I wanted to share some thoughts on a very important subject, which is our families, which is the Chinuch of our children, and the wisdom that's found in Sefer Bereshis, and the message that Sefer Bereshis is trying to give us and impart on us, and what makes Yidden Yidden. It's not just a physical heritage, we know it's a spiritual heritage. And we know it's in regards to Torah and mitzvahs, but there's something deeper than Torah and mitzvahs. Now you're saying, my gosh, that's sacrilege, Shimon. How could you say there's something deeper? Isn't Torah and mitzvah supposed to be it? But the reality is, and what my hope is, that as we learn Sefer Bereshis, which is something that I have done every week in the children's minyan, and there are some of you who have been part of that children's minyan. Some of you really have, raise your hand if you attended the parenting workshop that I gave years ago. And so the parenting, oftentimes I've been asked, how do I make sure that my children are Hasidish, are interested in Torah and mitzvahs, and I'm going to give you a very complex answer. And it's going to become more complex as this farbrengen goes on. But it basically has two parts. One is your part, and the other part is, of course, the child's part. Make sure that what we know to be true is what we actually do in practice. And so the two parts are, one, the more excited and the more time you spend doing Torah and mitzvahs, the more your children will see that it is something of value to you. And that's important, because some children will take that as something important to themselves. Notice I didn't say all children, because what you value may not necessarily be what they value. Period. And what we'll learn in the Torah, that this is the relationship Hashem has with all of us. We as His children haven't always been true on the path. And Sefer Bereshis is extremely revealing. Now, I have done this with every sefer, and there's a theme in every sefer in Chumash. And I gave a little talk over by the Best, which I talked about the themes. You know, there are 5 books, Humshei Torah, right? And those 5 books have each a particular theme. I'm not going to go in depth. I'm just going to gloss over the 5 themes, and I'm going to go deep into Bereshis because it's powerful. The lessons that we get from Bereshis are foundational. If we don't understand the concept of Bereshit, we miss the point of the whole Torah. We really have no idea what we're doing if we're just doing Torah and mitzvahs and miss what Sefer Bereshis is trying to teach us, because it's foundational. Sefer Bereshis, the Rebbe, I know this because Rabbi Miller, who was one of my rabbis in yeshiva, heard it from the tutor who tutored the Rebbe when he was 5 years old. And the Rebbe gave over the following talk to his tutor. As we know, and many of you probably know, why does the Torah begin with a base and not an aleph? It's a famous question. There are many, many answers to it. Who here knows that the answer in terms of on 3 things the world stands? So, in Sefer Bereshis, what happens is as follows. The Rebbe says, if you understand in Pirkei Avos that Rabbi Shimon Tzaddik says that on 3 things the world stands, and what are they? Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasadim, right? Gemilas Chasadim. Anyway, on 3 things the world stands. Not 2, because that's the minimum number of legs you need to have a stable platform, is 3. You have less than 3, you don't have a stable platform. So if you take a base as opposed to an aleph, if you take a base, right, and you have to understand another concept. The MS, which is also 3 letters, right, back to this number 3, and the opposite of MS is sheker. MS is the first letter, the middle letter, and the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And if you look at the gematria, what's the gematria of MS, Yaakov? 441. 441. If you add those 3 digits, 4, 4, and 1, what do you get? 9. So 9, if you multiply 9 times any number, it will reduce back to 9. 9 times 5, right? It's 45. 4 plus 5, 9. 9 times 11, 99. 9 plus 9, 18. 1 and 8, 9. 9 times 1,347,452. It makes no difference how high the number is. It will always reduce back to 9. Because that, say the sages, is the number for truth. And truth is eternal. Sheker, on the other hand, is comprised of 3 letters, and it adds up to 600, which is reduced down to 6. So 6, say the sages, is the opposite of MS, of 9. You know, in the Arabic numerals, that's right, they're upside down. They're actually in reverse. Right? What happens is as follows. If you take the base and you begin and you count base, Gimel, Dalet, what do you get? 9. What do you start? What happens if you start with an Aleph?
6.
Aleph, base, and Gimel.
6.
6. So the Rebbe explains, and remember this is what he said when he was 5 years old. If you begin and you believe this entire world is here for you, and you are the center of the universe, and this whole world is here to serve you, you are living the life opposite of Torah. Because it's all about you. If, on the other hand, hey Pepe, if, on the other hand, you begin life thinking that there's someone that you need to love as much as you love yourself, the other, the base, then you live the world of Torah, of emes. Because it's loving other people other than yourself. And that's the foundational aspect of the Torah. And if you don't get this part, you're missing it. L'chaim, l'chaim. Pepe, come, get the l'chaim. So, this is what the Rebbe says, Sefer Bereshis begins, and that's why it begins with a base and not an aleph. Now, understand that what is this talking about? This is talking about a singular concept called Ahavas Yisroel, loving your fellow. And I'm going to take you on a journey which I have taken the children at the children's minyan every Saturday, Rabbi Klein, right? And it's Ahavas Yisroel, right? And every single parsha really highlights it. And I'm going to bring some questions in each parsha because it really defines Ahavas Yisroel in such a way that it's really a directive of how you can live your life and raise your family, and how to be an educator, and how to raise your talmidim, your students. It is extremely powerful. And it's life-altering. It can change how you behave. So Sefer Bereshis begins with the following question. Why are we here? Why are you here? What's our purpose in life? You know, in our New American Academies, our kids say three statements. Pepe Gutierrez is a headmaster in the Bronx, one of our New American Academies. Pepe, what do the kids say?
I am unique and special. I have a purpose in life. I'm here to make this a better world.
Now this is something that the kids say every day.
I didn't go home.
They're unique and special. They have a purpose in life. And they're here to make this a better world. These are the Goyim. These are the nations of the world. Why are they saying this? Because this is essentially true of all of us.
It's not.
Now, in Sefer Bereshis, we have two things, and one that Fiverr was very kind enough to send me. He sent me a video of Rabbi Manis Friedman talking about the relationship between Adam and Hava, the two people who first came into existence, and the conversation that they were having prior to eating of the forbidden fruit, which, by the way, the sages maintained was a grape. So, in honor of Adam and Hava, you could please have grapes. It was not an apple. And it went like this, because usually when we read the story of Adam and Hava, it goes something like this. Hava gets tempted, she eats the fruit, she tells her husband to eat it, he eats it, Hashem asks what's going on, and Adam Arishon, the first man who ever lived, don't blame me, it's my wife that you gave me. And then Hashem says, oh, well, you guys did that. Well, now you got punishment. Boy, now you're going to die. And not only are you going to die, you're going to have really hard life. You men are going to have to work and sweat. And you women are going to have pain and labor. And life is not going to be so easy anymore. However, we know that in Chassidus, we learn that Adam and Hava did not have a Yetzer Hara. They did not have an evil inclination at all. They were total tzaddikim. They were created by Hashem himself. They were perfect. So if we know that, how is it that they could possibly make this kind of mistake? They were Nevi'im. They could see into the future. Adam HaRishon was so great. The Midrashim tell us that the Malachim, the angels, thought he was Hashem. He was so brilliant, they were bowing down to Adam. So how can we reconcile these two versions? How is it possible, according to Chassidus, that we think that Adam and Hava were Rishayim? We're wicked people. We're so easily tempted. The only mitzvah, don't eat of that tree. Here we go. So what's really going on here? Asked Rabbi Friedman. Manis Friedman says as follows. It's beautiful. And if you get an opportunity to watch this clip, it's a very powerful clip. Because in it, Hava is having the following conversation with her husband. She says, how are we going to raise our children? What do you mean? They're going to be tzaddikim, like us. They're going to be saints. I said, but is that really what's going to happen? Look, we're in Gan Eden. Everything is perfect here. There are no trials and tribulations in the Garden of Eden. There are no challenges. How is our virtue ever going to be proven to be true? Our children are just going to be robots. Programmed. But it's not really coming from their own hearts. It's not going to be their real choice. Well, what are you proposing? Hava said, that fruit represents a doorway out of this idyllic environment called Gan Eden. Because why did Hashem create us? He wanted the dir v'tachtonim, a dwelling place down below. This is not below. This is the Garden of Eden, for heaven's sake. For heaven's sake. I think she was probably the first one who said that. There's no challenge here. How are we going to really help develop our children? It's not real. We're not in the lowest of worlds. In order for our children to really grow up, they need to be in the real world. They need to go and transform the world. And Adam said, well, that's risky. Our kids could suffer failure, disappointment, loss. Shouldn't we just protect them from all that? And Hava said, what kind of world is a world in which there is no challenge and there's no way to prove to Hashem how much we truly love Him? This is easy. It's easy to praise Hashem when all you got is everything. It's harder to do when you don't have it. I don't think Hashem put us in this world But he put us in this world so we make a choice, Adam. We have to make a choice. He's not going to force us to make this choice. It's up to us. Do we take that door or not? Because if we don't, we will never give Hashem the pleasure He really wants. And so Adam said, you know, you're right. If we're here to transform the world, Gan Eden doesn't need any transformation. It's perfect. It doesn't need us. It's the lower world that needs us. And they were willing to sacrifice their lives for that vision. So now comes Hashem to Adam. Says, what happened? What did you do? And Adam said, you know, you gave me this great wife who really made me understand things in a much clearer manner. And I now know why we need to do what we need to do. And that's why I ate. And I'm ready to face the consequence. It's going to be hard, says Hashem. But here's the plan, Adam and Hava. I'll make clothes now for you. It's going to be a tough life. But thank you. Chaim, Chaim. Chassidus shows the very same issue. Chassidus shows the very same issue with such a different, more beautiful light. And all of a sudden, it makes sense. These are tzaddikim. These are saints that we're talking about. These were the greatest souls of all time. We're not talking about chumps. This is Adam Arishon, of which all of us share his soul. That's how great his soul is. And now you can see the greatness of Hava. These were truly great, magnificent people. But that message has not been so crystal clear throughout the ages. And of course, we have the first case of murder. Cain kills his brother Hevel. Now I just started saying, it's all about Ahavas Yisroel. The Rebbe says it's all about Ahavas Yisroel. That's what begins with a base. And yet we have murder of brother murdering brother. What's going on? So you know the story, right? Hevel offers shepslach, fat shepslach, sheep. Cain, on the other hand, offers flax. Hashem accepts the sheep and does not accept the flax. Boy, that made Cain mad. He was jealous. He was upset. How dare Hashem choose him over me? It's not fair. It's not right. Hevel, you think you're such a good guy? I'm going to do you in now. Because I want to be the favorite. So out of jealousy, he killed his brother. And you'll notice that in Sefer Bereshis, this theme keeps happening over and over and over. This desire of brothers to hurt their brothers. Then comes Parshas Noah. And so here's the question. Now, we understand that there's a fundamental purpose in life, and it's to create a dir v'tachtonim. We get it. So which is more important? Doing Torah mitzvahs or being a mensch? Raise your hand if you believe Torah and mitzvahs are the primary reason why we're here. So therefore, it's more important than being a mensch.
Well, Torah mitzvahs include being a mensch.
Not necessarily.
The way practice.
Who thinks being a mensch is more important than doing Torah and mitzvahs? Raise your hand. Come on, I just see one hand. Everybody else is what? Undecided? I don't know. I'll see where the votes go, where the hands go. I'll feel my way around this. Huh?
Isn't that what the Reform rabbi said? That it's more important to be a man than to observe Torah?
Typically, religious Jews say the Torah mitzvahs. And
So listen to this. Isn't that what the reforms do? They say it's all about being a good person. Who cares about Torah and mitzvahs? I didn't say that. I asked, which is more important?
not at the cost of the other.
Correct. And so,
Which this guy way more.
and so what we notice is the world, now understand how people were at this point. People were mighty. They could live almost 1,000 years. They were never ill. They were always in their prime and strength. Always. Their entire lives, they were like 25 years of age in terms of physical strength, and their physical strength was extraordinary. Extraordinary. These were mighty people. Remember, they never got sick. So who needs Hashem? They were just like walking, powerful titans. They could do what they wanted, when they wanted, how they wanted. And they forgot all about having to be a mensch or being nice or what is this, Hashem? Come on, I'll do what I want, when I want, how I want. There was absolutely no Ahavas Yisroel. There was no love for your fellow. It was gone. And as a result, what happens? Hashem sees, is the world really worth keeping? It's so bad that the only tzaddik in the generation, Noah, doesn't even pray for his generation. Hashem says, I'm going to kill them. He says, good riddance. Noah says, when are you going to do it? It's going to be 120 years. 120 years, it's too long. Wipe them out. Noah was not interested in saving them. He didn't pray for them. He said, they're Rishaim, they're wicked people, they got to go. They have got to go. Rinse this world, rinsing cycle, get rid of them, wipe them off the face of the planet. As long as you save me and my family, I'm okay with it. And Noah was okay with it. He didn't have any empathy for the people of his generation. And notice what happens once he comes out. Remember, it's about saving himself, right? And his own. Well, his son Ham takes it one step further. His son Ham says, well, my father's really happy. Right now there are 3 brothers, Shem, Yafis, and myself, says Ham. And so Ham says, well, that means he has more children. That means less of a pie for me. Right now the world can be divided into 3. It might be 4, 5, divided into 10 parts. I can't have that. No way, says Ham. It's about me. So he physically assaults his father while he's drunk and castrates him. So he cannot have any more children. No, he was not being a mensch. But this is real. This is family. And you know, Shem and Yafis go and they cover up their father, walking backwards. And it's interesting because the Torah is giving us lessons that we carry reminders with us to this day. Like for instance, with Cain and Hevel, wool and linen. Wool is made out of sheep, right? Linen is made out of flax. We don't put the two together because we cannot have the archetype of good and evil together. They don't mix. That's why we don't wear linen tzitzis, we wear wool tzitzis, representing Hevel. And then, when Shem and Yafis came and covered their father, that's why we wear a talis. We wear a talis in memory of how they honored their father. So when you put on the talis, when you put on that four-cornered garment, it's for a very particular reason. It represents that love and respect that we have for our Father. And of course, Noah curses Canaan. Canaan was the son of Ham, who went around saying, "Hey, everybody, you guys know what happened? Well, Noah got castrated. Ho, ho. You should come and see." That was Canaan. Why was Canaan so happy? Because he shared the idea that Ham had. He was overjoyed of what his father had done to his grandfather. You notice Canaan took it one step even further. Ham did it out of selfish motives. Canaan enjoyed it and the suffering of his grandfather. And so Noah curses Canaan, that he should be a slave. Now notice, it's really interesting, the lineage of a lot of the nations that the Jewish people then have to deal with in the story of Bereshit. Who does Mitzrayim come from?
None. Ham.
Ham, directly. Who do the Plishtim come from? Canaan. The Philistines come from Canaan. And now you're going to start seeing how that relates as we go through the different parshas. But before we do, I need a Hasidic sheniggun. Da 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 da, ya 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 ya. So now Parshas Lech Lecha. So notice we've gone from purpose of why existence to there's got to be Ahavas Yisroel, and that being a mensch is more important than Torah mitzvahs. But then the question is, can you have Loving your fellow without Hashem. What's wrong with communism? We're all brotherly, we form a commune, we live together, but who needs Hashem? And this is what was tried in Parshas Lech Lecha. You see, after the flood, the people got together and they said, well, what happens if Hashem wants to flood again and wipe us out? Well, let's get together and build a tower so big that no matter how big the flood is, we're going to be okay. We're just going to go at the top of this big tower and we're going to be fine. We have nothing to worry about. We can defeat Hashem. Because we got brotherly love. We're communists. Karl Marx didn't invent it. It happened way back in history. In Parshas Lech Lecha. Now, of course, there are many problems with this ideology. We have found out how awful that ideology actually is in practice. And what Hashem did in order to break that comity, that sense of brotherly love, he just made them have different languages. He confused the heck out of them. So this way they couldn't cooperate, they couldn't work together. They didn't share a same language. When you don't have the same language, and you're not talking the same language, you have a problem in communication. By the way, this often happens between husbands and wives. We have a problem of communication. We almost talk a different language. Has a spouse ever said, You're not being supportive. You're not treating me with my emotions. Have you guys ever heard anything like that? Sounds familiar, doesn't it? And it's very difficult to work with one spouse because in many ways we do talk a different language. Women are much more attuned to emotions, are much more sensitive. We men have less of that. We're much more problem-solving oriented. We're going to fix things. Give me a problem, I'll fix it. You got a plumbing issue, we can fix that. You got an issue in the house, okay, I can take care of that. But beyond the world of fixing things is a whole world of emotion, which are very hard to wrap one's head around. Very difficult, very challenging. And so what men oftentimes want, well, they want the pleasure without having to deal with all those emotions, all that commitment, oh my gosh. And so it used to be the practice that powerful men, if they would see a beautiful woman, they would kill the husbands to have access to that woman. You hear something similar is happening today. I think there's a whole Me Too movement of all these women being taken by powerful men. So this didn't happen just recently. This has been around for a while. And in Parshas Lech Lecha, who goes into a land? Avram and his beautiful, beautiful wife Sarah. They go to where? Mitzrayim, Egypt. What does Paro want to do? Hey, I don't want that woman. Don't want all the emotions. I just want that beautiful woman. That desire is so potent that it can break any love for your fellow human being. So much so that they're willing to murder just to have that. Lot also went down to Mitzrayim, to Egypt with Avram, and left together with him, saw the tremendous wealth that Avram had, but Lot was tempted in a different way. He liked money. Lots of it. The more money, the better. And his people started stealing from Avram. Now remember, Avram was incredibly wealthy when he came out of Egypt, and so was Lot. But Lot wanted more. Just having $1 billion was not enough for Lot. He wanted 10 billion. He wanted what Avram had. And so Avram's people were saying, hey, this isn't so kosher. And they told Avram, you know, this is a problem here. We've got a problem. And so Avram parted ways with Lot and said, look, whatever direction you want to go, you go in that direction, I'll go the opposite direction. Guess where Lot went? Sodom and Gomorrah. Why? What they valued there was money. Money was be all and end all in Sodom. And so Lot went with similarly likely minded people, right? They had shared the same values, not family values. They shared the same values. People make their choices. Now remember, he was growing up with Avram, with Sarah, saw angels. He was witness to all these miracles. Didn't matter. His evil inclination was so strong, he wanted more money. And he thought, I got enough now from Avram, I'll go get more now. And I'll go to the richest part of town. Sodom and Gomorrah were like the Beverly Hills. It was fancy. It was rich. People were laden. What happens? There's a war. 4 kings versus 5 kings. Remember, back at the Tower of Babel, the one who started it all was King Nimrod. Well, King Nimrod wasn't done. He wanted control of the world. It was the first world war that took place. 4 big kings versus 5 big kings. It was a huge war, and the 5 kings lost badly. One of the kings was the king of Sodom, who lost. Problem was, Lot was taken captive by the 4 kings. So he was going to be enslaved. Now this is Avram's relative. Okay, he may be a thief and a scoundrel, but it's still my nephew. And so Avram and Eliezer go out and wipe out the 4 kings just to save his nephew. He was willing to sacrifice his own life to save a nephew. Quite frankly, was he worth saving?
Yeah, sure.
But we didn't know that. He's a Russia. He went to Sodom, for heaven's sake. These were totally wicked people. Not only was he in Sodom, he was made a mayor of Sodom. He was a judge. And we know the justice of Sodom was terrible. Why was Sodom destined to be wiped out? Because they took a little girl who saw a beggar, who needed food, and she knew it was illegal to give charity, and nonetheless gave charity to that beggar to keep him alive, give him a little bit of food. Well, the people of Sodom found out. Not only did they kill her, they covered her in honey and placed her next to a beehive so that the bees would sting her to death. one of the worst possible executions one can imagine. And this was called justice in Sodom. Because they did not believe in charity. This is why Sodom had to be wiped out. Because they went counter to the very purpose of existence. We're here to help one another out. We're here to help the helpless. Sodom was doing the opposite of fulfilling the purpose. Now Sarah was barren. She couldn't have children. She couldn't have kids. And so what does Sarah do? With such an act of loving kindness to her husband, she gives him Hagar. Who's Hagar?
Egyptian.
An Egyptian woman, a princess, right? She was an Egyptian princess. And says, have children through her, because I obviously can't have any children. But you need to have children, Avraham. That's an amazing woman. She was willing to sacrifice Avram's loving her singularly so that he could have another woman, so that he could have children. You really need to wrap your head around that, because we're all married to spouses and we know how the spouses want them to be the one and only. And here's Sarah saying, have Hagar. It's absolutely mind-blowing. But that's the kind of spirit Sarah was. And what happens? Of course, Hagar has a child, Yishmael. And what does she do once she gets this child? She starts making fun of Sarah. She holds Sarah in contempt. Because now she feels she's more valuable than Sarah. Because she has a child and Sarah doesn't. Boy, this really upset Sarah. Because her act of kindness was trampled upon. But what we notice in Parshas Lech Lecha is that this powerful... Now notice that Avram was not going to seek another wife just because he couldn't have children with Sarah. That just wasn't in his nature to do. Only when Sarah told him this is what you need to do did he do that. Whereas others, such as the king of Egypt, Paro, wanted beautiful women. It's such a contrast between the two. And the Torah is teaching us how Ahavas Yisroel can go out the window with the sexual primal urges, especially that men feel. So comes Parshas Vayera, and there's another question of which is greater. Is Ahavas Hashem or Ahavas Yisroel greater? Notice, every Parsha is picking apart Ahavas Yisroel, trying to show us a way of understanding how to live. Now, in Parshas Vayera, we begin, of course, Avram has had a bris, right? And he's looking for guests. Now, it's the third day, he's in pain, right? He's having a conversation with Hashem. Hashem comes to visit him. And then he sees visitors. And he says, excuse me, Hashem, I need to attend visitors. Hold on a second. You're talking to the King of Kings, Hashem himself. And Avram says, one moment, Hashem. There are people here. I need to... He didn't know there were angels. He put Hashem on hold. That's right. He said, all right, Hashem, I got to put you on hold right now. I got to attend to these folk. But But then Hashem says, all right, seems like you think that people are more important than I am. How about sacrificing your son? And before that test, he says, get rid of Ishmael. Because your wife told you to. Think about that for a second. It's his son. It's his wife. But Sarah says, get rid of him. We know that Avram was the aspect of love, of chesed. How is he feeling? He was torn. It was devastating. How could I throw out my child? Here I'm opening my doors every direction for people to come in, and I'm throwing out my flesh and blood? But Hashem said, no, listen to your wife. All right, Hashem, I'll do what you tell me, and I'll do what Sarah says. But then comes an even greater test than that. Oh, you were able to get rid of Ishmael? Sacrifice your son now, Yitzchak. You need to see this context. Because he epitomized love. He was hospitable towards everyone. And here Avram now has to make a choice. And he has to sacrifice. Sacrificing himself, not a problem. We don't have a problem sacrificing ourselves, but sacrificing our children. It used to be the practice back then. In those cultures, the way they wanted to appease the gods, right, was to sacrifice what's most valuable is one's children. It was common practice to sacrifice children. It was normal. And so what Avram is being asked to do is in that context, that cultural context, quote unquote, normal. Not normal for Avram, but normal in the world. That's a very difficult position that he's been put in. Nonetheless, with flying colors, he's willing to offer up his son. And Hashem now realizes, okay, they're equal.
They're all interconnected.
They're interconnected. But what was Avram willing to do?
Give up his son for Hashem.
That was Ahavas Yisroel.
And so you're saying that's Ahavas Yisroel.
We don't understand how, but it was.
But Hashem said, no, don't go there. No, I need you to understand. We do not practice human sacrifice. Okay? It is a fundamental of the Torah, and this is to teach us that's not what Hashem wants. Hashem does not want us to sacrifice our children.
He wants to see if we're willing to do it.
He wants to see how far we'll go. Directive. Ahavas Yisroel is more important than sacrificing your children. Never sacrifice your children. Never, ever again will you do that.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
And what if Avram would have said to Lechatchila, what are you, crazy?
So I want you to understand, when Hashem is going to wipe out Sodom, does he ask the angels, what do you all think?
Avram.
Why Avram?
He gave that country to him.
But-
He gave the nations to him.
Yeah, why else? What does Avram represent?
The father.
Chesed, right? So he's asking the aspect of chesed. Should I wipe them out? What's Avram's argument?
No.
Why not? Why shouldn't
some tzaddikim?
There could be what?
There could be some righteous people mixed with it and don't destroy the righteous people.
Yeah, I mean, look, what happens if you have innocent people there? Innocent, good people. You're going to what? Who cares what the ratio is? It could be 1,000,000. If there are 10 righteous people, you're going to wipe them out? You're going to kill them along with all the others? It's not right. And then when Hashem says, well, there are 10. Oops. All right, I guess there's not much saving there. Right? Justice! Finally! What? Avram, knowing how wicked, I just shared with you a horrible story of how they murdered a little girl who showed an act of kindness. These were truly wicked people. Sodomy comes from Sodom. These were not good people. That's how they greeted guests. You can imagine, these were totally not the kind of people you want to hang out with. And here's Avram arguing to save them. Why didn't he argue to save his son, who was a tzaddik?
Trust in Hashem.
The trust in Hashem. And to show Hashem how we can only do that by being
Challenge.
That's the only way. You can't do it otherwise. Avram is following Ahavas logic. If Hashem said, do it. She knew what Hashem wanted. He wanted us to choose Him above all else.
And Avram?
Avram wanted to choose Hashem above all else. He did that with Ishmael. Okay? He didn't want to throw out Ishmael. He didn't want to kill Yitzhak. It wasn't in his nature. But if that's a way to prove to Hashem how much he loved Hashem, this is why he's the father of all of us. We are here to show the world that we need to love Hashem. We are the living embodiment of that concept. And this is why people hate us. They want to wipe us out. Because they want to do their business without a reminder that there's a Hashem. What do you mean? That there are principles, that you have to have morals, that you have to actually sacrifice of yourself to give to Hashem. That's too hard. I want to be able to enjoy my life. Take that beautiful woman just because I can and I'm powerful. Now we come to Chai Sarah. Chai Sarah is fascinating. Because does Ahavas Yisrael extend to dead people? Now, here comes Avram, and he asks Ephron, right, to buy the... It's insane! Okay, it's just an astronomical figure. So who would want to do that? It just doesn't make any sense. And yet Avram quickly took out the money, and here you go, Ephron. Why did he go to such trouble? He could have buried her somewhere else. Why did he have to bury her next to who? Adam and Chava. Why? What is the connection? Now we go back to Chassidus, right?
She's so sacrificed.
She, just like Hava, was willing to sacrifice. Sarah's life was that of sacrifice. She always maintained her purity. She was an absolutely remarkable woman. And by the way, she lived 127 years, which, by the way, Boondocks is 127 proof. That's another reason why I drink Boondocks. Not only because Ahasuerus ruled over 127 lands, but Sarah Imanu lived to 127. L'chaim, l'chaim.